So if you recall, we're doing a series on the life of Jacob. And we're really coming towards the end. And at the end of the last lesson, um, this amazing unity was created between Jacob and Esau. So all of the lessons of the life of Jacob are about unification. And the mystical meaning of them, as we've been talking about each time, is revealed in the tree of life, right? So this thing that we call the tree of life or the Sephiroth is not only within us, but individually, but corporately, we make up the tree of life. And the tree of life is in every natural thing that there is, right? So uniquely, not totally uniquely or exceptionally, but Jacob was a central column to ferret, which means beauty in English, central column wholeness of the tree of life. So that throughout his life, that was the struggle, unifying left and right, masculine and feminine, above and below, within and without. All of these dimensions he unified not only within himself through his struggles and battlefield of consciousness, but also in his mishpah, in his family, and therefore in his community as it spread out. So this is all about this unification process, whether it's a metaphor or solely a metaphor or historical events. I don't know, but it's an instruction to us that allows us or enables us to engage that unified field, that unbounded oneness within ourselves, unifying within ourselves, masculine and feminine, and all of those traits above and below. And then through our action, unifying with our neighbors, right? In that essence. And unifying, to be clear, is not about thinking the same or even feeling the same way about a certain thing. It's transcendent. So that essence that's within us, that the Kabbalists call Ein Sof, is a transcendent essence. And it's continually emanating and creating and forming like that. And the way it forms, according to the Kabbalists, is with light and sound vibration. And light and sound vibration are emanated, and the first experience of creation is through this tree of life, right? That we call it, or our holy of holies within ourselves. So Jacob united with Esau, even though Esau was out to kill him, if you remember the story. And it's a beautiful story, but he always did one thing, Jacob. He never made war plans or assassination plans to destroy Esau. He always did a referral back to the Holy of Holies within himself, or a divine referral, I'll call it, rather than an ego referral or an object referral. It's a divine referral to that essence. So each time there was this struggle, he always came back to the divine in meditation, in prayer, in surrender. And that created the unity that was experienced with Esau that we talked about last time. So at the end of that, he goes to meet Esau. He bows down to him 7 times. He gets to Esau, and Esau cries on his shoulder and says, I'll walk with you. So now we have the beauty of the left walking with the right, the male walking with the female within themselves, right? And that beautiful union. And Esau says, come, let's go. And Jacob says, well, no, I have to now take care of the children because they are weak. And that's how we ended the lesson, right? So the unification of the children of Jacob, of the children of Israel, is really the his final mission of to be complete. And it continues to this day. So I feel like for us, the children of Israel, and let me talk about that for just a second. When we talk about being Jewish, most of us are, some of us aren't. It's about the coming from the tribe of Judah or potentially Levi, who the priesthood. So that's just two of the tribes of Israel. Of the unification of the children of Israel goes beyond that. So we don't know who are the children of Israel. They could be any they could have settled in any group of nations or be part of any group of nations. So the unification of the children of Israel is even bigger than the unification of the Jewish people, right? That's part of it, obviously, because Judah's tribe survived and the tribe of Levi survived through all of this. So here we are, and Jacob says this. So this is going to bring us to uh, the Torah portion, Vayeshev. It's Genesis 37. And it says, and then Jacob settled in the area where his father had lived in the land of Canaan. The land of Canaan, of course, is where Israel is. People call it Palestine. This time it was the land of Canaan, right? And the historians believe that the specific place was Hebron. So Hebron within the land of Canaan, which is now, of course, is in the land of Israel. And it says, these are the chronicles of Jacob. Joseph was 17 years old. So this is the Zohar and the Midrash make a lot of this, right? Normally, throughout the whole Torah, when chronicles or generations of any patriarch or person is being described, it goes by the firstborn son, and then the next born, and the next born. And these are the generations of Jacob. In this case, it says these are the generation of Jacob. Joseph was 17 years old. So the Zohar and the Midrash say that everything that followed, all of the generations, the children of Israel, became such because of Joseph. Joseph was born like Jacob from the central column, except Jacob was Tiferet, beauty, and Joseph was foundation. Foundation Yisod. So Joseph is the foundation of all of the tribes of Israel. And according to the Kabbalist, when the tribes of Israel are unified, this is why we're calling this unification of the children of Israel, that's when the kingdom of heaven will reign. So that means, whatever that means to you, kingdom, whatever, those words sound weird sometimes, but just think of peace on earth, that we're all supporting each other, uplifting each other. Love reigns supreme. There's no, we're not killing each other over money or success, for power. All of these things are changed, and the consciousness of the world is changed just through this unification process. So in the Veda, there's a similar philosophy or a theocracy or whatever we want to call it. It's basically called the yugas. And there's Sat Yuga, which is a time of peace like this, the kingdom of heaven reigning on earth. And so in that, that's that and the Hebrew Torah are probably, the Vedas and the Torah are probably the oldest teachings. And they're from different continents, but yet they both have this sort of same idea. In the Hebrew is called galgal, which is a wheel or a cycle. In these wheels and cycles, there's times of destruction, there's times of construction, there's times of war, there's times of peace, there's a time for embracing and a time to refrain from embracing. All of that is in Kohelet, right? When we read it, we can see it. So this is a beautiful thing in the Semitic tradition as well as the Vedic tradition. But what brings about this? how do we bring about this unity that we're talking about, this unification, understanding the transcendent unification that Jacob is thrilled that Joseph is born because he sees that as the foundation of generations going further that can be unified through him. So why him? There's all these. He has a sister, and there's 11 other brothers, and what makes Joseph so special? So it says in the Torah after the verse I just read that, and Joseph was loved by Jacob more than the others, right? And that sounds like we're starting off bad for unity, right? If you love one kid more than the other kids, it's already a dysfunctional family because clearly there was dysfunction between his love for Raquel and Leah. And then the children carried that over. And then now the Torah is stating he loved Joseph, who was the son of Raquel, adding to this friction, right? So as we go through this Torah portion, I think there's instruction for us on how to have a unity and diversity and not doing, perhaps not making the same mistakes that Jacob and Joseph and then of course the brothers made with him. But quick background to that is that Jacob was born circumcised. And according to the Zohar, Jacob and the Midrash, Jacob was born circumcised, and so was Joseph. So it wasn't like he was trying to continue with this idea that it was because he loved Rachel more than Leah. It was the idea that he saw this foundation, because according to the mystics, going back to Shem and Eber, the idea is that when someone is born circumcised, they're destined for unification and enlightenment. Now, I have a friend from Israel who was born circumcised, so it's not totally uncommon. And the thought now, these days, since the time of Babylon, is if you're born circumcised, you have the potential to be a Messiah. Now, I know this guy really well. I love him. He's a good guy, but there's no way he's the Messiah. I can tell you that right now. So Jacob was thinking, okay, Joseph is this. So when we think of love, in the Torah, love is pretty much a commandment. So it's a practice, right? So in Jacob's mind, this is a connection to the divine, pure consciousness. Because when you looked at Joseph, you could see that unification in the central column, the same way when you looked at Jacob. Let me just read from the Zohar in case I'm not making any sense to you. And it says, these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph, etc. When Jacob was brought to rest in Joseph, so the sun was united with the moon. So first of all, there's a lot in that too. At this point, Joseph is 17. The Torah declares that he's 17 years old. Jacob's around 108. So Joseph is 17. That they put that in there for a reason. It's got mystical meaning to it. And it's 10, so the 10 Sephira are united in him. And 7 is the 7 double letters, the 7th representing the energy of rest in the Shabbat. The wholeness has been made, and this is the fruits of that wholeness. So 7 is like the perfect number, and 10 represents the Sephirot. So by saying he's 17, they're making a statement. The sun being united with the moon has to do with the masculine and feminine unifications that we've already talked about with Sarah and Rebecca and Rachel and Leah and Dinah, right? They're all part of this big egg of unification. So when Jacob was brought to rest in Joseph, so the sun was united with the moon. There then commenced a production of offspring, the progenitor being Joseph. For it is that perennial flowing stream. When you think of stream and perennial flowing, think of pure consciousness, right? Which fructifies, bears fruit, the earth, and from which generations are propagated into the world. The sun, even when it approaches the moon, cannot cause vegetation without the help of a grade which goes under the name of Zadik, righteous. It was then Joseph who was the grade of Jacob, this middle column, to bear fruit and bring forth offspring in the world. Hence, these are the generations of Jacob, Joseph. Or again, we may take the words to signify that whoever looked at Joseph thought he was looking at Jacob. So this oneness was clear, not only emotionally and spiritually, it was a physical likeness as well. So, yes, he loved him because he saw all this potential of this unification that he created with his brother and throughout his life with the divine essence, the transcendent unification. So, of course, what happens is in expressing this, we have divisions paradoxically created. So, according to the Midrash, Jacob taught Joseph all that Shem and Eber had taught him. So that creates jealousy without a doubt amongst the other brothers, right? So there's this dysfunctional thing going on. The brothers are jealous. Then Joseph has a couple of dreams that he relates to his brothers, right? And in those dreams, I won't get into the weeds of the dreams, but in those dreams, his brothers are bowing down to him, are serving him as the master, right? So further on, when Jacob's about to die and we come to an end of this series, we'll have a better understanding of that, but that was a mystical dream related to a mystical experience and the tree of life. But he goes, of course, happily to express these things. This is after his father makes him a multicolored, beautiful gown or coat, which adds more issues. So that brings us to this idea of how do we have unity with such diversity, with such ego, and with all of these things going on, right? And the answers aren't plainly known. You have to sort of scour the Zohar and even Gemara and stuff to really get a grip on this, because it is somewhat multifaceted, and that's a paradox. Because I'm saying Yogastad Guru Kamani, transcend the three gunas, transcend these thoughts, transcend who's the better brother into this undifferentiated Ein Sof pure consciousness. And that solves the problem. Well, apparently it doesn't, because you have this experience in levels. In our tradition, 32 levels and borders that you have to cross. So you cross these borders and these levels, and then what? As you're crossing the border, you're excited and you want to share it, and then there's jealousy. So there's this thing we like to do at UMI. Recently, it was brought on with David and Jack had done it in some other places. where we meditate and then we do nigun, which is singing, and then we do the sharing. But the sharing is not normal sharing; it's mindfulness sharing. So if you're sharing a high level of consciousness experience or a low level of consciousness experience, people are present for you to listen to you, not to advise you, not to teach you, not to counsel you, but to listen. So after this person speaks, which is called the barki, we listen mindfully at what they're saying and say shamati, which means I have heard you. And then you let it digest. Maybe some days later you talk to the person to get more clarification. But we don't normally do that. That's not our natural tendency, right? We feel often maybe even accused by the person who's speaking, or we think, oh, that's not my experience. So now we begin this sort of like clashing of heads rather than deeply listening. So this is an important part of establishing unity amongst ourselves, because we're all likely the children of Israel or the children of God, whatever, however you want to look at it. We're all human, and we all have this divine spark within us. So Joseph goes off and tells his brother these dreams, and they have a very negative reaction to it. They're very jealous, and they throw him in a pit and eventually sell him off as a slave. But there is a reunion that happens. And I'm going to talk more about that next week. And I'm going to talk about it because it helps us understand in the world of action. Because now we're talking about Joseph. Tiferet is a higher, when I say higher, I don't mean better. I mean, I'm talking about grades on a tree of life. It's just a higher branch, right? So you have Tiferet, and then Yisod. Yisod is more encircled in the world of action. It's the foundation in the world of action. So as we're talking about the unification of the children of Israel, we're talking about engaging that rest within us. Remember the number 17, the Sabbath day, that rest in the Holy of Holies within us. And the boy was 17. We engage that, and then we perform action. We perform action wisely so that we don't create division, right? That's the idea. So I'm going to end this lesson with a message from the Baal Shem Tov. Now, the Baal Shem Tov wrote this to his brother-in-law. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. Basically, what he tells his brother-in-law, I went into meditation where I took an oath. Oath means is an initiation into a particular practice. I went into meditation, I took this oath, and I ascended these levels till I got to the level of the Messiah. And I asked this question: when are you coming? When will there be world peace? And the Messiah says to him, when you teach most of the world what you know. So I'll pick it up from there. I stood in wonder with great distress as to the length of time necessary for this. When could this be? You have to imagine, he didn't, this is, he'd been studying all his life, praying and meditating all his life. So he's thinking, I got to teach everybody all this. But what I had learned that there were three potent practices with three holy names that are easy to learn and explain. So my mind settled and I thought, this could possibly happen by means of these. Men of my nature will be able to achieve levels similar to mine. But I was not given permission all my life to reveal this. But this I may inform you, and may God help you. Your way shall ever be in the presence of God, and never leave your consciousness in the time of your prayer and study. Every word of your lips should have kavanah to unite. For in every letter there are worlds, souls, and divinity, and they ascend and connect and unify with each other. And afterward, the letters connect and unify to become a word, and then unify in true unification in the divine oneness. Include your soul with them, and in each and every state, and all the worlds will unify as one and ascend to produce an infinitely great joy and pleasure, as you can understand from the joy of the groom and the bride in a miniature and physical way. How much more so in such an exalted level as this? Surely God will be your aid, and wherever you turn, you will succeed and reach greater awareness. Give to the wise, and he will become even wiser. Another thing that I want you to listen to, is a lecture, a brief lecture by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, whose memory is blessed, on unification of the children of Israel. He talks about it much more eloquently than I have. But next week we'll follow this Joseph into Egypt and the reuniting with the brothers, and will be the second to last Jacob lesson.